Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, very happy to say that he is a returning guest. And I will start by just saying I read the laundry list of accomplishments for one Bill Bradley a few weeks ago when I had him on. It was a long list of things that distinguished him. This gentleman's list is getting about as long as Senator Bradley's. So let's see. We have ESPN, ESPN radio host, obviously, where you could hear him every day with Bart Scott, 12 to 3 on 98.7 ESPN New York. You could see him on ESPN's television stations, yapping it up with all the folks over there. And you could also catch him on a little network known as MSG, where he calls Knicks games in his spare time, I guess, because he doesn't have enough to do. He's still a newspaper man to me, always will be. Alan Hahn. Hello, sir.
Appreciate that. How you doing, John? Yeah, don't ever put me in the same category as Bill Bradley. I mean, the man not only is a Hall of Famer, a two-time NBA champion, went to Princeton, a Rhodes Scholar, and a senator. There's none of that on mine. Like,
yeah, he's not an Emmy winner.
Well, the show he did, he might win. I don't know whatever award that would be. I think it deserves it. So you never know. But please, but thank you. Good to be here. Glad we could do this like we do every year.
Yes, it's one of my favorite traditions, and I can't wait to pick your brain about a lot of things. Many of them having to do with the Knicks, but as I usually like to do, I want to talk about you a little bit first because the role of Knick play-by-play guy is one that has been filled by some notable folks over the years, and you seem to be making yourself very, very comfortable in that spot. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable because obviously we know it's Clyde's gig. It's always going to be Clyde's gig until the day Clyde doesn't want it anymore. So I will just ask you very generally, what has this journey been like for you as we start to see you doing that a little bit more? And as Clyde is, obviously probably not going to do this forever. Just what are your thoughts about where you're at and how you're enjoying all that?
It's just, for me, it's like each time I get to do it, it's just a treat. You know what I mean? This is certainly not something I'm auditioning for. I don't want to give that vibe off at all. This is me just trying to be as versatile as I possibly can for the network when they need somebody. And so, you get 2 years ago, I got a first crack at it. And all that happened was Luka Doncic got a purposely missed free throw rebound for 2 to force overtime and a 60-point triple-double. So how's that for your baptism by fire? Sitting next to the greatest of all time, Mike Breen, calling the game. And so in that moment, you've got to remind yourself, hey, you're not viewing, you're calling this thing too. You got to be in on it. So, that to me was such a great opportunity, right? Just that's the best way to describe it. And then to be told, well, why don't you do more? And when we need you, can you be available? And I've learned in this business to never say no. Like, just be available, be ready, be prepared. I think that's important. The preparation part of this that nobody gets to see. I study more now than I ever studied in school. Don't tell my teachers that, but that's a fact.
It's a secret.
It is. But it's an industry secret. It really is. And when people ask me about this is my 14th season in MSG. My first contract was a 3-year deal. And my wife said, what happens after 3 years? And I just said, I hope I get another one. So 14 years is a blessing. So long story short, I just like to have the ability to do many different things. And I think of one person when I'm doing it every single time. And it's a guy that I looked at as a mentor. I had two people that when I started covering the Knicks back in 2006, that went right to me, and they weren't writers. One was Al Troutwig, who is a dear friend of mine to this day, who always said to me about how important writing and the writer was and the written word. And the other one was John Andres. Now, a lot of the younger fans don't know John Andres, Johnny Hoops.
I know him.
A lot of younger fans don't remember him. I'm sure you certainly do, John, but he was someone that immediately looked at me, had his arm around me. We would talk hoop. We would talk with just New York City basketball, not just the Knicks. But I saw John as growing up as God, he has so much joy. He loves his job. He loves basketball.
He was
loves
generous with his spirit for the game, always.
Yes. And it was real. It wasn't a put on. It wasn't an act. It wasn't a shtick. You just saw pure joy. And so I always was drawn to that. And, we all have our dreams, right? We all have our thing this is never going to happen. But I'd love to be able to do what Johnny Hoops, what a job that is. I'd love to be able to do that. Never in my life would I think I'd be able to do that. So if I'm sitting anywhere in an NBA arena next to Mike Breen or Kenny Albert, Gus Johnson I got to do a game with, or if I'm sitting at Madison Square Garden courtside, like just imagine that, John, like sitting courtside at the Garden,
Well, I can't imagine
calling a game on MSG Network. Like, so those are the moments, instead of getting caught up in, the ego and putting out my chest and look at me and look at how great I am. I go right to, man, John Andres did this and I want to do it. I want to do it in respect to him. So I want to have that effect on anybody else watching. A kid watching it might say, man, you know what? When Hahn does games, he's so into it. He's got passion. He's prepared. He knows everything. Like, I want to be able to do that one day. That's really what it's about for me. And I know that might sound like a put on. I'm telling you, that's how I feel. That's how I feel all the time. I think of John Andres and I say, like, I get to do what somebody that I looked up to did before me. And I just want to do it as good as him and honor him for it. Because he didn't play for the Knicks. I didn't play for the Knicks. Obviously, like, so for me, it's like there's another way we can do it without having I put the uniform on background, and this is the best way I can. So,
and not for nothing, there's 15 players on the roster. There's only two guys who call the game. More, or two people who call the game, and more if you count radio. I promise you, I'm not going to keep asking you just about you. We're going to talk about the Knicks, but one more quick follow up, because you just talked about how you approach doing this job, and now it's you've been doing it for a few years. Is there and has there ever been a push and pull for you between, like, I'm in this seat, this is such a lofty position, I gotta, not that I gotta put on an act or anything like that, but I have to be at a certain level, versus, well, ultimately, if this works for me, it's because I'm going to be myself. Like, how do you reconcile what you think you maybe should be or need to be versus just like, look, I just got to do what I got to do?
It's a great question. It's something that I think I've battled for a long time when I made the transition from a beat writer to somebody that's, again, in broadcasting on TV, which is a completely different role, is you don't want to get lost in the character, right? You don't want to get lost and try to perform. But you also learn, and I've learned this not just from like the people I've worked with at MSG, but at ESPN, I learned it a lot, spending a lot of time next to Mike Greenberg and sitting with him and doing shows, Get Up I've done with him. It's watching him work, and you see it is a performance. It's performative. And what you learn, though, is that it's not a performance because it's showing off. It's a performance because I'm drawing. You got to draw, your energy has to draw people in. But that's when you can't lose yourself. You also have to understand, though, you have to be genuine. So I can't do what Stephen A. does. I can't do what, Chris Russo does. I can't do that. I can only do what I do and have my personality. And, if people like it or don't like it, that's the viewer, and they'll decide that, and I'll know if they don't call me back. That's the way it is. But I have to live with that. And if I try to be something I'm not and try to put on some kind of show, that's not being genuine. And I feel like that's exposed more than anything else. So it is true. It's a good point you're making, because you can get lost in it. You can be like I always say, you try too hard. Doing like I said, doing Analyst when you do a game. Mike's the show, right? Like, Mike's the show. And so, and you're just trying to feed off his energy, and you're just trying to get in and get out. Like, just I know there's something here. Or even the conversation of it all, because Mike is so good. Like, you can talk hoops with him. He's not just a play-by-play guy. He knows the league really well. And so what you're trying not to do is get in the way, right? Don't make it about you. And so, Clyde Rhymes, some other people have their, Mark Jackson, hand down, man down. Like, everybody always has their thing. I don't know. I don't think I have a thing, but I'm not trying to develop a thing. I'm just trying to talk some hoop, watch the game.
We hear from a lot of people here who are just putting it out there. No pressure. Like, I hope when the day comes, it's Allen. So I'll just leave that there again.
I appreciate that, but hopefully Clyde does this for another 100 years.
We should hope so. Okay, let's talk about this basketball team. First, I want to try to put it into context, because you've been covering the team since 2006, but you've been following the team for a lot longer than that.
Oh yeah.
I was young in the 90s. I remember the 90s. I go back to about the 93-94 season, which I think may be relevant here, because I'm trying to think when's the last time there was a season with this much, I don't know if excitement or anticipation is the right word, but it's a combination of that and also the pressure I think they've put on themselves with, and we're going to talk about, the Towns trade in a second, but with that, the Bridges trade, the whole thing. It feels like kind of a unique season that, as far as I could remember, in this franchise. Can you compare it to anything, or do you think it's also kind of wholly unique?
Yeah, I think, we can go to 12-13. We all know that was a small window hit and run roster. Like we know exactly what it was, but it's still going in, like I always tell this story about all the teams I covered. The first couple of days you go in the locker, you look around, you can just tell like guys have a vibe about them where they go, yeah, we got a squad, man. Like, yeah, no. Like you talk to certain guys and they just kind of like look around the room and they're like, yo, no, this is going to be a good season. Like you can feel it. And then trust me, I've covered teams where you go in like 2 or 3 days of training camp and maybe you have your guys that in the room. And then one of them is just like, yo, this is going to be a long year. Like you get that. So you kind of know. And that 12-13 team, when you have obviously Melo and Amari, but also guys like Jason Kidd and, Tyson, like you look around, you go, okay, they got some dudes. Like this is, this might not last long, but this could be fun. That team thought they could take on the Heat. They just unfortunately couldn't get there to prove it in the postseason. So I do think there was an anticipation with that team because of the names. That summer, I remember being at Summer League when they were signing all these guys and it was just brand name after brand name. Yes, they were all older, but it felt like, it felt like the Expendables movie, right? Where it's just like all these, like all these action figures, all action stars got together to make one blockbuster, and you just thought this could be kind of fun.
I've never heard that comp before. That's great.
Think about it, right? Again, you're 40-year-old Jay Kidd, right? So, wasn't Kurt Thomas on that team?
Kurt
right?
Thomas, Marcus Camby, yes. Kenyon Martin, midway through the year,
bring them all back, right? So that's why I felt like there was like a this should be cool kind of vibe. Like, hey, maybe they could do this. Could be fun. But I never was thinking, this is a really, really well put together roster and a smart franchise. And the next couple of years, I never thought next couple of years could be great. I just thought of like this could be a fun year. So that's one where there was anticipation, but I don't know if it's at this level. Now, you said 93, 94. Now, I was just graduated college. My basketball career mercifully ended that year. And so it was the first life. I always say it's my first time as a civilian. I was a fan, and that's really it, a fan. Like I was a fan when I played in high school. I loved the Bomb Squad teams, and I loved, again, those teams with Rick Pitino, and then when Stu Jackson took over, and we went through the growing pains early on. Then when Riley came in, that was it for me. Like I really was like, this is awesome, this is fun. But I was so involved in my own career, trying to survive as a Division II college basketball player, that I really didn't know those teams as well as a fan would. So that 93 season when they won 60 games, my knee was shot by then. I couldn't play much, so I really got into the Knicks that year, the 60-win team. I love Doc Rivers. And so that first on last off thing that happened in 93, 94, where they had training camp, they were, I believe it was in South Carolina, right? It wasn't at College of Charleston?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so they were at the Citadel, which is not the same, but okay. But the point is that there was a unbelievable anticipation because no Jordan, so he wasn't in the way, and you felt like they just come off 60 with, like, this is the year, and it really felt like that. But I will remind everybody that 96, let's not forget, they remade the roster, and they got a little younger, they got interesting, and that team thought it was good enough, and once again, never had a chance because of that stupid series with Miami.
Well, we don't have to talk about that.
Well, my point is that there were moments where you felt like there was something. But this, John, this feels different on many levels because
tell me how.
Well, here's why it feels different. First of all, this feels sustainable.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Like, this is not a team that is, for 1 year. This is not a team that has a clock ticking. Patrick Ewing was older in 96. It was like, we got to get something done here because Patrick's kind of on the other side. This team has the feel of, you got a core and there's still going to be like I don't think this is the finished complete roster. Like I still think there's other things that could get done at some point. That's what I like about this. I think this is sustainable for a couple of years. So this isn't they got to win this year or else. I think this is, you could get to the conference finals and have a battle and realize, okay, they're almost there, but they're not there yet. You can have a climb with this team. This feels more like that. It doesn't feel as urgent. It's not a Jets, Aaron Rodgers, you got to win or else. This feels more like this is a really well-functioning franchise that you have to trust. Whatever is needed to get better, they'll figure out a way to do it. And year after year, they're going to be extremely competitive. And you can just settle in and kind of enjoy the process and hope this thing's going to hit one year. And that's the kind of what we're all waiting for.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a chance. And I was writing a newsletter recently, and I was going through like Boston. Like this has been almost a decade for them before, of like ups and downs and conference finals.
Yeah.
And then, they're eliminated in the first round. And now we're back to the conference fight, So, just like progress with players isn't always limited. Progress with teams isn't always limited. I'm jumping around a little bit because I want to go to something that you said before about, players looking around that locker room at the beginning of camp and kind of getting a sense like, okay, we got a squad. We heard so much last year about how important the culture was to that team. I mean, there were people who thought, do the Knicks have the best culture in the NBA, which is not something I thought I would be saying or asking five years ago. And here we are. Are you concerned at all with the moving pieces in the offseason that about an adjustment period on that front? Or do you just think these guys, like the talent in the room, these guys are like selfless and they're going to, do what they need to do?
Been around the team. So I think one of the things that you notice right away is there are a lot of same personalities.
That's good.
That's what I really have noticed. And that was last year. I mean, what I think one of the brilliant things that goes understated that Leon Rose and his crew has done in building this team is rather than just finding pieces, the X's and O's, he was also looking at, like how they all would be off the court. So the personality is sort of on the same level. So I don't have there's like 3 or 4 guys that like to go out club, and then there's a couple of guys here that play video games. And
Clicks, yeah.
They are gym rats, all of them. And I mean, even before all the trades, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, gym rat. Like these guys were gym rats too. Randall, gym rat. But so when you're moving those guys out, you're bringing in people that also fit that way. OG Anunoby, he's a guy that's just, he's a different personality. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to be in a typical, and like he's not, I always say this, he's not like the club hopping sneaker brand, typical NBA, the prototypical NBA or cliche NBA player. Like he's a baller. Like he plays basketball and he kind of just keeps to himself. All these guys are like, I used to, and this is again, back in the early days, I was covering the NBA. Like guys didn't talk about the league that much. Guys weren't talking NBA. Guys weren't talking about, like they were talking about all kinds of, okay. Conversations be all about all different things. These guys, all they talk about is basketball. It's all they care about. So
that's so cool.
I think personality-wise, and Towns comes in, and somebody in Minnesota told me this, and I thought it was interesting. In Minnesota, they said he can go there with that group, and he can just be himself because he doesn't have to put up a front. Because there aren't any kind of these kind of fake tough guy that, where he has to suddenly put on some bravado or whatever. He's like, yeah, he could just kind of be goofy and they won't look at him weird in the locker room because most of these guys kind of goofy too. And they'll just laugh and have fun with it. And then you cross the line, you step onto the court and all of a sudden you got a bunch of killers, that's kind of what this team's made up of. And that was brilliant to do. So you don't have to worry about clashing personalities and one guy's a little too alpha and this guy's a little too passive and maybe it overwhelms him in the locker room. That doesn't happen. And I think that's important. So I don't think so. And the other reason why is Towns already has, just like when Brunson got here and he already had uncles, Towns does too. He's known Leon a long time. William Wesley's been in his life a long time. He's from this area. He is known Tibbs and the coaching staff. They've all coached him. They all know him. He comes in with a comfort and familiarity that off the court, there won't be any adjustment period awkwardness of that fake being nice to each other until it gets real. And then the first time you yell at me, I'm almost like, oh, okay, that's how you're going to be. Instead, he already knows. He's already been through it. That's important. Mikal Bridges is the Villanova guy. There's no adjustment period whatsoever there. And then last but not least, the one guy I was curious about was Cameron Payne.
Oh, okay.
He's a veteran, right? He's been around the league a long time. He's played for a bunch of teams.
A lot of good teams.
He always had a bit of a swagger to him. And so I was watching him in Charlotte, just like curious, like, all right, what's he going to be about? I'll tell you this, John. When have you ever seen Charlotte? If there was 3,000 people in the building, I swear I could have counted by hand. There was nobody there. And there was probably 2,900 Knicks fans out of the 3,000, right? There's no one there. It's a half-empty building. It's a preseason opener on a Sunday. And so I'm like, the game is about to start. Warm-ups are happening. And so I always watch the bench, see what guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Cameron Payne bouncing, dancing, like getting like hyped. Like he was Tyler Kolek waiting to do his I'm going to make my NBA debut. Like Cam Payne acted like this was like, I'm hyped for this. And I thought, oh, he's going to fit in just fine. Because he loves to play. If he's psyched about this, he loves to play. So he even feels like a guy that like, all right, so I could see he just loves the ball. That's cool. So long-winded answer to your question is I don't really have great concern about chemistry because there's so much familiarity about them off the court that I think the stuff on the court shouldn't take too long to figure out.
That's great to hear. You mentioned Towns. I'll ask about him quickly. One, just like what was your reaction to the trade? Were you as surprised as everybody else? And then two, there's so many storylines with him. Like you mentioned him and Tibbs. That's obviously going to be something that people will talk about. God knows there's a lot of on-court storylines. What's one thing with Towns that you're going to you have your eye on, you're wondering about, you want to see how it develops over the course of the season? Anything at all?
Well, first and foremost, if anybody listens to my radio show, this does not come as a surprise to me because I've been talking about the connection with Karl Anthony Towns and it felt like an inevitability ever since the ownership change was happening in Minnesota and you knew that they were going to be cutting back. And, a lot of people I talk to that are really in the know, a lot of media people too nationally, kept telling me, like, get ready for him. I was like, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're going to move a contract. That's the one. And when they re-signed Naz Reid to the contract they signed him to,
there we go. Yeah.
That's when you're like, all right, well, why would you spend all that money on a backup four? It doesn't make sense. But it does if you know that is foreshadowing of we're eventually going to cut this salary. So I kept waiting for, when are the Knicks going to do this? Thought the trade deadline, but Minnesota was too good. They weren't going to do it then. Draft night? Never happened. Okay. The Bridges thing happened, which that's the one. Who the hell saw that coming? But
so that was what shocked you. Okay.
Yeah, that one, because I never thought Brooklyn was going to unshackle that poor kid and send him across the river, but they did. But
shots fired.
Towns was one that felt inevitable. And it's interesting that once the Mitchell Robinson news came out, that's when it happened. Now, if Isaiah Hartenstein resigns, I don't think they do it. Like, I think circumstances, I think circumstances had to happen. And one of them was Hartenstein leaving, and then the other one was Robinson coming up with more issues with his ankles, and it left them small, without a center, and with a major need. And that's when they decided, all right, like, we've got to do this now. And Tim Connolly, the GM in Minnesota, made it clear, I don't like anything you're offering me. So if you want to get this done, you got to put DiVincenzo in the deal. And that hurts to move a guy like that. But he had his eye on DiVincenzo as a free agent the summer before. He wanted him. So he said, if you want to do this, I need that guy. And the Knicks finally were like, listen, we got to do this. We got to do it before the season or else the money won't work. So they made it happen. So not a big surprise. I think his fit with Brunson, pick and pop, pick and roll. We already saw in the preseason game. I know it's only, they only played, 10, 15 minutes, but you could see that there's going to be a lot of two-man with Brunson and Towns. You're going to see a lot of pick and pop stuff, a lot of Porzingis type stuff that he does in Boston. And I saw a little bit, I should say, and you guys do this better than anybody when you break down plays, so I'm sure you've seen it already. What Hartenstein was doing at the top of the offense late in the season, Towns was doing the same. A lot of facilitating, little
Very excited about that.
like handoffs and screens, ball running through him, taking the ball out of Brunson's hands, letting him do a lot of Steph Curry stuff, running around, make you chase me off some screens, and then let me catch it while you're stagger screens, and then I can just break down whoever switches. I think there's some of that's going to be in the playbook as well. So for me, the shooting wasn't great in Charlotte in the preseason opener, but if you take the shooting out, which you know is going to be fine because he's a high-end shooter, the movement on offense caught my attention and made me go, this could be interesting. and it's funny. Brian Windhorst said the same thing. Brian Windhorst is like, I think these guys are going to be scary. This is going to be a good offense.
Heard him today. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's very exciting. And I think his career high is like 4.8 assists. I would love to predict that he gets over 5 this season, but the Knicks are just such a low assist team typically. But maybe that's one of the things that changes this year. I mean, the ball certainly is going to be pinging around, finding open 3-point shooters. Okay, a couple more. I promised you I wasn't going to keep you too long. So let's get into a couple of nitty gritty things. So rotation.
Wait. Yeah. I forgot one important thing.
What important thing, please?
Because you guys are, again, I keep saying, because I'm remembering, because I'm with you guys, and you guys are so good at breaking down plays. You do your film stuff.
Well,
that the other
my colleagues
thing
are. I don't know about me, but
I wanted to.
Sure.
Well, I said you guys. I think is also something to watch is matching up with Boston. When you have Karl-Anthony Towns, you now match up with Boston better because Porzingis murdered the Knicks last year on catch and shoot threes. He shot 55% on catch and shoot threes against the Knicks last season. He was insane. And you remember early in games, he'd kill you and you just had no answer. And once you had to pull your bigs out, what happened? The middle of the paint was open and everybody went to work. Hard to guard. Now you have an answer to that. And I think that's important because Towns, his numbers, look him up. Catch and shoot threes at a big men last at the center position, best in the league. Percentage-wise, shoots as many as Porzingis and shoots a higher percentage than Porzingis on catch and shoot threes. That's going to be, to me, a big part of what this offense can do, which is a dimension they haven't had before, which is why I said this just puts them on a higher plane, bringing them a lot closer to matching up better with Boston. And then you have the big, strong body that can take on Embiid as well when you play in Philly. That's why this trade has me really intrigued, because I just feel like they are a better starting five with him than they were with what they had last year.
I think the Knicks offense versus Boston's defense is probably my personal number one for like the matchup that I am most excited to see how it develops. Not that either coach is going to fully show their hand. The thing that will, if those two teams end up playing against each other in an eventual series, the thing I think will decide the series is the other end, is how do the Knicks try to match up? Because like you bring it up, the Porzingis pick and pop threes, that was the one thing I could never get over whenever people says, well, you can't lose Robinson's defense. And obviously Mitch is still here. He's still going to be an important part of this team, but I felt like his defensive, effectiveness sort of waned when they played Porzingis and the Celtics because of how the Celtics go about their business.
Yep.
And I'm curious now, Towns is obviously not the defender you would think that Mitch is, but are there some other things that they try to employ to guard against those actions? I'm fascinated to see that.
Me too.
Yeah. So a couple quick hitters, rotation. Tibbs went with a 10-man. Tibbs is not typically one to go with a 10-man. Sure seems like Deuce is settled in as the 6th man. Sure he's going to play a lot of minutes. What do you think about what we're going to see for the rest of the guys out there?
Yeah, I think you're going to see, I personally believe you're going to see Bridges as your feature with the bench. I think that's how it's going to work.
Okay.
I think, how I think he did that with RJ Barrett. He did that with Randall at times, right? You know how they split up the starters and then one of the starters usually goes with the bench, and that's how you usually get to your 9-man rotation. And I think, I'm just guessing, this is not anything anybody's told me. It's just me watching and just surmising, okay, this is how it should work. Bridges, because you can feature him as a lead scorer, because in the last 2 years in Brooklyn, what did he do? But show you can average 20 a game. He had 6 40-point or more performances, so the guy can score. And so with the starting 5, he's going to play a lesser role, more of a, interchangeable part, but not a featured scorer because you have Towns and Brunson with those 5. And he's fine with it. But if you give him those minutes with the bench players, then he can be featured. But he also has chemistry built in already with Cameron Payne for their time in Phoenix. He has played with Landry Shamet as well. And Deuce is also a really good spacer of the floor because he can shoot the three and obviously a phenomenal three-point shooter. And they all want to run. Payne, Deuce, Bridges, they all want to run. So I feel like your second unit might be, and again, I'm just, the way I see it, knowing how Tom Thibodeau has over the years with the Knicks coached it, he's always had one starter with the bench, and that starter's been the feature scorer. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And I think, and Jericho Sims, who looks really good motor, his body looks great. I think for now, you'll probably see him with that group. And Landry Shamet is making a serious case to make this team. It's kind of a small lineup if you do that, because that would put Bridges at the 4. But I just think an up-tempo kind of group that can really fill it up, I think that might be one possibility.
We've talked about the Towns-Brunson pick and roll already. Is there either a two-man combination? Is there a lineup, or even maybe just a player that you're interested to see how he looks with this group? This year, maybe it's someone who's been here for a while. Who is it?
Yeah, it's Josh Hart.
Okay, let's talk about Josh Hart. Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see. Now, again, I want to remind everybody that the preseason opener was guys are going 75%. And I know nobody wants to hear this, but I've been covering the NBA a long time. I've never gone to a preseason game early in the preseason, I should say, and say, man, these guys are getting after it, right? Like I said that, I think that when Minnesota came in last season, there was like the first half, they were getting after it, very physical, and I was like, oh, this is good. But that was like the third of the fourth preseason games. I think it was like the last one. But so this was let's just kind of get, let's get it cardio. Let's get some cardio in. Let's work on some stuff, but we're not going to ever give away plays. We're not going to show, we're not giving any film to anybody. No scouts are going to see what we're doing. Very vanilla setup, not much of a scout on the other team, just general stuff. So, you're just going to get guys that are just going to go through, play, but you're not going, Indiana game 7 against anybody, right? So I want to start with that. But so Josh Hart didn't have a huge impactful game in Charlotte with that 5. But I don't know, like when I look at the 4 players he's playing with, and we all have learned what he is, I'm wondering if he could be a double-figure rebounder.
Ooh.
I'm wondering if he at 6'4", I'm wondering can he, because we've seen him have a 20 rebound game. Like we've seen him dominate the boards. We've seen him do things.
How tall is Russ? Russ is 6'3". Russ is a crazy athlete back in the day.
He's also a ridiculous athlete, but
yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, could he be a guy that flirts with 10 a game and maybe 3 or 4 on the offensive glass? Here's why, John. Think about it. You've got to have two sets of eyes on Brunson. You've got to have your biggest guy on Towns. You've got to have people closing out on Bridges, especially with the drive, and then OG Anunoby in the corner. Who's going to account for Josh Hart, who you're like, well, I'm not guarding him. You're helping off Josh Hart, which is what Nick Nurse did. Yes. And what did he do to Nick Nurse? He got every freaking rebound. He got every offensive putback. And he knocked down occasional threes just to let you know, just to remind you, leave me open, I'll hit him. Now if you defend me, I might not hit him, but if you leave me open, I can hit him. And I'm just curious if with his motor and those 4 guys, is he going to be unaccounted for enough times to break your back with a rebound, a putback, a second possession? And that's why when you say to me, is there somebody you're watching? I'm watching Josh Hart just to see, what kind of serious impact he can have that is not scoring, but certainly can make a huge impact on winning.
Everybody has different definitions of X factor, but like if you told me that you thought Josh Hart was going to be the X factor for this Knicks team this year, like it in a way you could squint and kind of believe it. Double-digit rebounds. We got to get Bet You, our friends at Bet US who sponsor us to put some odds on that. Okay,
over under 9.5. Over 9.5.
You heard it from Alan Hahn. Okay, let's end here. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you, predict how the Knicks are going to finish the season. But give me something. Give me one prediction, whether it's a win total, how far you think they'll make it, that you think they'll, if they face a certain team in the playoffs, they'll have the edge. Maybe it's an individual thing, something that you feel pretty confident sitting here with all the caveats in the world that injuries happen and crazy stuff happens as the NBA. We know it. Give me something.
Well, I think this has the potential to be one of their most winningest seasons since 96, 97. I think it was 56 that year or 57 that year, if I'm not mistaken.
One of those two sounds right.
Yeah. I feel like they could be in the 50s. I think it was 54 back in 12, 13. I think they certainly could hover there. Again, all things considered when it comes to injuries, everything else. I'm saying potential is there for this to be a high win team. I think the potential is there for this to be a team that you look at in the East and you say to yourself, to me, the Final Four, and I've heard this, and this is not from NBA people, but I've talked to executives in other leagues, and they all use this phrase: is a Final Four finish is a good season, regardless of what happens. It's a good season because you're one of the last four teams standing in the tournament. So whether you make the championship game in the NFL, the LCS in baseball, right? The conference finals in basketball and hockey. That was a good year. And for the Knicks, to me, that's right now. Their challenge is to try to win a championship. But the reality is the next step for this team that's gotten to second rounds now in consecutive years, that is to get to the conference final, to play for a chance to get to the finals. To me, give me that opportunity, and I think they have a great chance to get to the finals. So I feel like they can get to a conference finals. And then after that, it's let's see what happens, right? You can't predict anything because of injuries and everything else. But I am a firm believer from looking at this roster and knowing the NBA like I know it, especially the East, that I think this team is definitely good enough to be a conference finalist and I think has potential to reach the NBA Finals. They are that good. They have the potential to do it because what are the weaknesses? They have the coaching, a guy that's been there, done that. And I think that's always an X factor when you're coaching against other teams that have all these young coaches and new coaches and all that stuff. You're never getting out-coached if you're the Knicks. Never. You're never going to get outworked because this Knicks team has that reputation now that they're coming into your gym and you got to play hard because they're going to play hard. And I've talked to coaches around the league last year about this, and that's all they would say. Well, you're going to get their best. This team plays hard. They would repeat that mantra. And the young teams, man, they would tell you, tell them, my guys, trust me, these guys are going to work. You got to work too. So that's why you can believe in this stuff because the talent part of it sounds crazy. That's the easy part. They have it. Brunson's an All-NBA MVP finalist. Towns is a walking 2010 All-NBA talent. They have talent. Mikal Bridges might be one of the best players in the league that has not been named All-Star, right? And OG Anunoby is an unheralded player. They have enough when it comes to talent, but they also have the intangibles of hard work, of workmanlike, a gritty, tough, competitive, and then they have a head coach that is never getting out coached. He's going to have his team prepared. That's why I have really good confidence that this could be one of the best years we've seen in a long, long time.
Alan Hahn, this never gets old. I have to tell you, when you come on here and we do these preseason previews, I'm just going to say this before I ask if you want to plug or promote anything. You talked about John Andrews before and like how he was once upon a time that guy who you put your arm around you and it had a certain effect. Like I want to preface it, I'm not calling you old. I'm not calling you old, but you have done everything when it comes to covering this team and covering the league and covering sports and everything, covering New York sports, covering national sports, where like you're that's that as far as I'm concerned, like that's you, man. You're the guy. Yeah, that's it. You're the guy when it comes to if you want to know something, if you want an authority and you want it to be, as you said at the top of this show, authentic. Go to Alan Hahn. So tell folks at home, for anybody living under a rock, where they could hear more of you every day.
Well, I mean, for me, it's just, I have a radio show every day. We do talk, we sneak Knicks in even during the NFL season and everything going on right now between the NFL. I mean, the Jets just fired their coach. The Mets just won another ridiculous game in the playoffs. All that goes on. But, Knicks people know they come to my show. I'm on at noon all the time. It's 8:80 a.m., but you can get it ESPN New York has an app and you can get it streaming anywhere. And I love the fact that we're in Charlotte and I've got people coming. They want to take pictures. Of course, they watch, our MSG coverage. But every now and then you also get the thing with our show, my show with Bart Scott and how they listen to the show because people can't get enough of their New York coverage. So to me, it's something I'm most proud of because it's every single day. But you all know, if you're a Knicks fan, if you're watching this, you already know MSG is the place to be when it comes to Knicks stuff, or pregame or postgame. Every now and then you might hear me next to Mike Breen. And in home games this year, you'll actually hear me doing some sideline as well. So it's like I said, it's living the dream, and hopefully this is a dream season that I can be part of. And I'll say this too, I'm taking notes because there might be a book in a year like this. There might be one. It's been a while since I wrote one, so I'm taking notes. We'll see what happens.
There would be no one better to write it. I could say that unequivocally. You mentioned the sideline. Never say no, right? That's your thing. Always say yes.
Never say no. No, that's the best thing. You get an opportunity, take it, and just you don't. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, John. Right?
There you go. Alan Hahn, one of one. Thanks so much for making the time, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
You got it.